Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. I am joined by Travis Voss, leader of innovative technology at Helm Mechanical, and we are going to be reviewing the results from an industry-wide survey given to fab shop managers and leaders. And before I hand it off to Travis, I want to note that as we go through this webinar, the survey, we will be having the poll up so that you can answer the survey questions as we go along. So keep an eye out for those. We would love to hear your responses and see how they compare to the rest of the survey. And with that, Travis, please take it away.
All right, Maria, thank you very much. Yeah, as you said, we're going to take this, we're going to do a poll as we are presenting the results of the survey. And if you've ever sat through one of my presentations, I prefer to be somewhat interactive, a little harder online, but if you have thoughts, questions, throw them in the Q&A, and I'm sure we'll get to them as soon as we can. So without further ado, let's go through the results of the Rank Your Fab Shop survey. Actually, there is more ado. Introduce myself. My name is Travis Voss, leader of innovative technology here at the Helm Group. I've been with the Helm Group, specifically on the mechanical side, for 6 years now. I'm a former full stack software developer, come from outside of industry. And since then, I've been added to the MCAA Technology Committee. I am one of the co-hosts of the Construction Dorks podcast. So if you want to look that up, you can hear even more of my voice along with some of my colleagues, where we talk about technology and just different, well, we sit down and have a drink and we talk about technology and different things we see within the construction industry. I like to throw out a little personal note. I tend to be a little bit of a serial volunteer. Living in a very rural area gives me a lot of opportunity for that. So that picture there you see is me coaching my daughter's travel softball team, but I'm involved with a lot of different activities in the area, so that tends to keep me busy when I'm not working. Just a quick overview of the Helm Group. The Helm Group as a whole is a $505 million revenue this last year, with a $525 million backlog. Focused very heavily in the Midwest. And as I said, I work with the mechanical division, mechanical plumbing, piping, HVAC, and recently purchased an electrical contractor. But we also have a civil division, aggregates division, heavy highway, and some other things going on. So fairly good sized company. We have projects that do go coast to coast, and have done some work even in Hawaii. A lot of those, interestingly enough, I like to point out, are part of our swimming pools division. We do a lot of things like Great Wolves and Kalaharis and that kind of work, which I guess that kind of takes us all over the place. All right, so here is our first question. I will give you all a chance to answer your own fab shop ranks, and then we'll go into the results here. All right. That should be enough. Are we going to show the results here on the screen as well? So everybody, if I'm doing this right, everybody should be able to see that the results seem to be right in line. How has your company invested in prefabrication operations and technology? The answer is, fairly heavy in the strongly or currently invested. I do think that most of the attendees are probably in the MEP world. I'm happy to see that. It looks like more and more of us are pushing along this line. We've been invested here for 25 years or so. And I take that commitment very seriously, and we continue to try to push ourselves forward. We'll go on to the next question here. Next question is, how much have you implemented BIM in current projects? So you're not just getting dead air. I'll go ahead and talk about on our end here. While we will say, we would like to say that we BIM every project, that's not always the reality. I think we all know that there are some projects that just do not necessitate BIM, or too small or too fast. But because of our fabrication processes, anything that has fabrication on it will get BIM in the BIM component. I don't see my whole results here, but there we go. Yes, so fully implemented or working towards full implementation. That's the same results that we were seeing. One person out there is not in BIM. Kind of curious about that, but we're all at different stages. So I think that we're seeing the industry again kind of pushing more and more towards this. So hopefully we'll see those numbers tick up. It has to be designed in our world to be able to be fabricated. So and it's cheaper to build that in bits than it is in bricks or parts and pieces and pipe and duct. So we'll move on to the next one here. What percentage of components go through your fab shop on the average project? Now this one, even in our online poll, I was very surprised. I will say, the Helm group here, we're probably more in that 49 or 25 to 49, maybe 50 and above. That's a hard one for us, for me to answer, because a lot of it is just, it depends, on those projects where we don't do BIM. A lot of that stuff doesn't hit the fab shop, or even some of those larger projects where we do BIM on, we haven't gone through the process of pushing all parts and pieces, all components through the fab shop to push out through the field. It is kind of a little bit about trying to find that right mix. And we've done some projects where we've experimented with the nothing gets shipped to the field mindset. I think it went pretty well. It's been, it's a slow moving or hard target to hit. It's a slow change to make, to continue to do that through all of our projects. And kind of like I said, it's hard, a company our size with the number of revenue, to put true percentages to this, right? Because I would say if you're looking for percentages of volume, total revenue volume, then yes, a large majority of our projects do get BIM, do push the fabrication, do push those components through our fab shop. But if you're talking about job count, those large jobs aren't, they're fewer, right? So you have many more of those small jobs. So those percentages you take the percentage that way, it will drive that down. All right, the next question. How clean and organized is your shop floor? This one here, I would say we're kind of mostly leaning towards the everything has a place. In our own shop is, especially I would say in our duct side is very clean and organized. I think that in my head, that seems to make sense. It seems to be the easier one of the two, because it is much more like a production facility where things kind of have a flow, where there's the coil line and the different parts of machinery there that are kind of fixed to a point and flow through. pipe shop has the same side. We have a lot of pipe cutters and tiger stops and weld booths that are very fixed, but the work tends to kind of flow and meander. We're recently expanding the way that we have our shop laid out, so we'll have better storage and everything like that to help out. But I think that we're all kind of right along the same line here with this moderately organized. It's kind of hard to get everything perfect and just right when we're dealing with controlled chaos like we do inside of our construction projects and our construction companies. So moderately organized, I would say, is probably about the best you can hope for. All right. The next question. By percentage, how many more projects do you feel you can take beyond because of prefabrication with the same staff or head count? We put this one out there because I do feel like leveraging BIM, leveraging prefab, leveraging a lot of pre-planning. I think that in my mindset, and I think hopefully the mindset that's starting to get through the rest of the industry, is we can do more work with the shrinking labor pool that we have, more work without having to take on a bunch of overhead. So I think the vast majority of the responses online were in that 20 to 30%. So had a couple there in the 50%, which is pretty exciting. If you could half again your work, add on that many projects, that's pretty exciting. I'd be kind of curious to have some conversations with some people too, we're talking more and more about shop flow and process flow and we're trying to apply those lean mindsets to reduce the waste, not just the physical waste, but the waste inside of processes. So I would think that 20 to 30% more projects would probably be reasonable. I think that if we really do a better job of the pre-planning and as much as we can, I know, and like I said, our industry is pretty chaotic, but more of the pre-planning, I think we could push ourselves to the 30-40% more projects. It would just take that longer view and being able to work with project teams that kind of let us get in early and work together to try to plan our work so that we can be that far ahead. How connected is your BIM and fab shop with the field and procurement or purchasing? You can see the results there of the online survey say somewhat connected. I would say that we are also in that area that's somewhat connected. I will say that procurement or purchasing is a little bit of a gray area for us, just the way that we do our purchasing. We don't have a centralized purchasing department or agent. So the project managers and field foremen are responsible for taking care of the vast majority. And I see all of you online here are in that somewhat connected area too, with 79%. So I would say, BIM and Fab Shop are very, very connected with the field. And then procurement is just kind of, because the way we do it, the early buyout and the jobs and everything. And then our procurement process for us is really more of orders fulfillment. Like we've already purchased it. So we're just kind of requisitioning what we've already purchased based on what we've fabbed or what we're going to fab and what we've drawn. So it's a little bit of a gray area for us, but I would like to get the BIM more connected with the purchasing. And that's kind of one of the efforts that we're always kind of looking at, is how can we get that even more connected so we can start to round trip some of that information back to estimating, get better numbers there. I would also, like to say, that when we come to the Fab Shop with the field and the BIM with the field, that has actually been, the BIM with the field has been very good for a very long time. Our field foremen work directly with the detailers on their jobs. Recently, as we've gotten more and more digitized than the Fab Shop, we've been building more and more tools so that the field can have better visibility into the Fab Shop. and that helps with that communication and that connection. Right. Number 10, does the connection between BIM, Fab Shop, and procurement work well? This one seems to be kind of spread across the board. Everybody's got a little bit of a different thought. The works well, works somewhat, and needs work, kind of, and the works okay. Like I said, they're all kind of somewhat evenly split. I would say ours is probably in the works. No, how would I say this? I wouldn't say it works great. It works very well. We can always have we always have the opportunity to improve. So we are in that works well area. Like I said, we've gone through a lot of effort to streamline and digitize this. So that connection is more of a not even a push, but they just have a resource where they can go and get the information that they need instead of constantly having to pick up the phone and call somebody or sending an email to get whatever detail that they're looking for. So I think it goes well. Like I kind of alluded to in the last slide, our procurement process is a little bit disjointed, kind of goes project team by project team, where they're using some of those reports out of our tools and out of our BIM to do the actual procurement. It kind of depends on whether that's a project engineer or the field foreman or the pipe shop foreman. Duct shop kind of behaves a little bit differently. So I do think it works works well. Again, we do have a lot of opportunities for improvement there. How often do you leverage the model when you prefab? This is another one of those somewhat tricky questions for me when I was talking before about the amount of projects that we model versus don't, the amount of projects we prefab versus don't. Obviously for us, anytime we're prefabbing, we always leverage the model. But we're not doing that in every project. So we're in the some projects. I would love to be in the every projects group right there. It's a little bit tough for me to, I can say intrinsically it feels like the right thing to do, but if we have a project that comes in that has 3 hand-drawn spools, starts to get into those conversations about, is it really worth the effort to go through and CAD that? I still think yes, because of the data that we can leverage back out of our systems as we push through that fabrication process, but that's a battle I haven't won yet. Some of those out there, most of us are in that somewhat projects, but few are ticking up more with that 36% sitting at that every project level. I'd love to hear some stories about how we push that, how can we get every project through a model, through fabrication, and some of those models, are you still using them for fabrication if you've only, again, depends on your company, but are you doing any projects where you're only doing the model to fulfill a BIM component or anything like that? So another interesting conversation to have the next time we're all actually in person together. All right. How much visibility do you have into the productivity of your prefab operations? This is, for us, I would say, I would put us either in the, we can see everything we need to, or great visibility. We're pretty high up there. I will say that we do a pretty good job of keeping tabs on the productivity. Now again, like anything else, we are always striving to do better. I'm sure everybody out there is kind of being bitten by the Power BIs and everything like that. So we're doing the same thing. We're trying to figure out how we can compile all this data and apply some analytics to it and get some cool charts and graphs and better metrics and KPIs. But I do think that on the whole, we're doing a pretty good job. It looks like most people are either in the great visibility or visibility could be better. So you're either great or you could be better. I think that anybody could always be better. One of the things I found interesting is we're starting to go through our efforts of trying to be better is once you kind of get all this data aggregated into one spot and you really think about what can we all tie together to highlight and enhance the data that we're getting out of our models or wherever we're getting it is what questions can we start to ask that we wouldn't have thought of. So that's been kind of a fun exercise for me as we're going through this process is, I think that we all have kind of our industry standards of, pounds of duct, lineal feet of pipe, weld inches per hour, whatever. But, being able to have visibility into all that raw data and then a tool like Tableau or Power BI, where you can start to connect different parts and pieces of your data together and create a new metric. Is that useful? Is it not? What does it tell you? I find that actually pretty fascinating as we're going down our path. Like I don't know if I would have liked to know that, but if I can start to slice and dice the data in a way that tells me it's something that could be interesting, then I can start to sift back through and see if there's any correlation. Correlation is not causation, but at least might start putting some spotlights on projects or processes in the shop or what have you that could be interesting. So that's where we are in the journey right now. Like I said, I think we're in that could be better or great kind of area, but always striving to improve upon that. Okay. How much do you leverage hardware and machines / equipment in your prefab operations? This one for us is most projects. Anything that goes through the fab shop is using some sort of machine or hardware by default on the duct side, since they build their own. Basically, they build their own product that they're going to install that uses a large amount of machines and hardware. On the pipe side, we do have a 6-axis pipe cutter. We do have some tiger stops and some, I forget the name of it all of a sudden, some band saws, some self-fed band saws, anything like that, anything we can do to take all that data that we're generating inside of BIM and push it right to a machine to both save time and eliminate human error when it comes to translating that information out of the BIM into those machines. That's what we're looking to do. We're trying to, as we're trying before, we're trying to do more work with less people, and we're trying to, eliminate some of those more routine and mundane tasks. If we can push a cut list, and that cut list we know is accurate, to the 16th of an inch as we draw it, we can hopefully encourage some of our workers to stop pulling tape measures. It's still a battle. To their credit, they are craftspeople. They take a great deal of pride in what they do, so they're still going to double check a lot of stuff. But we're trying to lessen that, help them understand that they can trust the information out and maybe just do some spot checks here and there. And it looks like most of you are on board with the respondents that we had previously online, and you're using your tools and equipment on most of your projects. So kudos to everybody there. Now, because I talk really fast, I think I'm already at my Q&A slide. So hopefully we have a couple of questions here before we maybe give you some time back in your day, because like I said, I talk really fast and didn't have too much to expand upon the questions other than to present the results. So I believe there is one question up there. Let me open that up. what do you use to facilitate your communication between your foreman and detailers? That we do, we do have, it again depends on the job, but regular fabrication meetings with the detailers involved in those. We do have, we do use tools like EVOLVE and Stratus and a few the other ones that are on the market there to democratize our model. I think that's the buzzword now, and get that out to the field foremen so that they can start to review what we're building digitally for them, so that they can then review what's going to be coming out to the field for them. So that's what, like I said, the meetings are key. We do a turnover meeting at the beginning where the foreman sits down with their detailing teams and really gets to know them, and it's very collaborative from there. How does your information flow from estimating to turnover to project management? I'm trying to piece some of these together. I will say that our flow is we have still kind of a manual process where after we are awarded the job, there is a kickoff meeting with the project team. Project manager and the foreman are selected. They sit down with the estimator and go through all the documentation, go through the bid and everything like that. If it's a large project, our detailing department has been involved early, but then they'll kind of meet their official lead team, the lead detailer there at that project turnover meeting as well. And then they kick off and they start getting through all the project documentation, all of the submittals and whatnot. I would say we have a formalized process, but we don't have any sort of system built around that. What we do have, what I will touch on there, I'm sorry, what was it? Patrick, what I'll touch on there is one of the things that we do in our turnover meeting that is useful in this, related to your question about submittals, is at that kickoff meeting, particularly the kickoff meeting where we pull the whole VDC team in with the project team, is our detailers would sit down and highlight to the project manager which submittals are key or high priority submittals. And that could either be because it's a piece of equipment that we are familiar with or we don't have modeled already. It could be something long lead time. Anything that, as you all probably know, that can derail the modeling process, the modeling to fabrication process if it comes in too late. We spend a lot of time highlighting those and kind of pushing on that because those are pretty important. Does your field utilize Stratus and to what degree? We do, kind of like I said, throughout it depends on the project. We've had varying levels of success there. Yeah, we do use it in the field. So there are some limitations, we need an internet connection and we don't always have access to that. Sometimes that field access to our system ends at the job trailer. And let's see here. Trying not to. What measures are people going beyond, or people using beyond linear inches and pounds? Are we getting to parts per labor hour, Nick? I don't think we're getting parts per labor hour yet. For us, we're still trying to do off of the MCA labor rates, whatever factor that we want to perform at, and that we've estimated at. We're starting to look at some other things that might make sense. And again, I think that your weld inches and your linear feet, I think are probably still going to be your mainstays or your pounds. But we are starting to look at package complexity, order complexity, how, not just how do we draw it, but how do we break it, break it up into our batches. Actually, it was just at the MEP Innovations Conference, and Charlie Dunn did a whole anti-keynote where we're talking about batching and work breakdown. It's very interesting. Does do multiple small batches when we're creating those packages? Does your productivity go up? Intrinsically, my gut instinct says yes, but we're going to hopefully start testing that out. What percentage of the job is budgeted for prefab? That's a great question. I wish I had the answer for you. I know how we're doing. We're estimating VDC. I don't have a great answer for the prefab. I don't think we have a hard fast number for that. I think that it's always been a discussion when we get awarded the job to sit down again with the project manager, the field foreman, VDC, and then the two foreman superintendents of the pipe and duct shop, where we start to really kind of figure out what makes sense to prefab and what doesn't, and then they just chop up the budget that way. Okay. Colin asks, I work on the CAD side of this equation, and after extraction, I only find out about prefab in the project postmortem. How can prefab visibility be increased to the people that performed pre-construction coordination? Well, Colin, like I said, our VDC people are involved with that early on, and we do have. There was a question earlier about who does. There's another question out there about who does the packaging assembly. Is it the foreman or is it our VDC? And in our company, it is the VDC. The foreman will tell the VDC detailers what constraints they have for cranes or lifts or anything like that. And then the VDC detailers break down all of the spools. Now they don't do the packaging quite as much, but the packaging comes from the foreman then and describes to them what their orders want to look, how they want their orders stacked up, and what timing and whatnot. So that's how we keep our VDC people involved. Our foremen really trust our VDC people to take on that task for them. So they're, like I said, they're involved very early. They have, not, what's the word there, or what's the term out there? They don't have the authority, but they have influence. So they're not the authority in the project as to what will and will not be prefab, but they have a lot of influence because they are very knowledgeable. They've seen this across multiple projects types in their experience, because they are kind of the centralized hub now of our fabrication process and actually our whole company now. So I would just encourage you to sit in as many of those. I'm assuming you guys have project kickoff meetings. Sit in on those and look to get involved in the fabrication discussion. When do you decide to use prefab for a job? Is that included in the bidding process? It is included in the bidding process. We always, I do, again, the caveat here is jobs of a certain size or complexity or what have you. We do have several small projects that go on. Even though a lot of time is, we do a lot of school shutdown work. So we will plan to use prefab on those where we can get in, do demo and have the prefab ready to go. So it's a very conscious effort up front from the estimating side all the way through. Again, as to what gets prefab, that's usually a discussion between the various foremen and PM once the project is awarded and we start through the kickoff process. All right, Nick asks, a good question in my opinion. Are shop leaders using hour by hour tracking on each work cell? For us, the answer in the sheet metal shop is yes. In the pipe shop is not yet. And that's just because we have two different ways of tracking and ordering work. We're using more of a work ticketing system inside of our duct side with some pretty standardized phase codes that follow the work all the way through. So we are getting, you know, for lack of a better word, hour by hour tracking there. The pipe shop, we're dialing some of that stuff in. We do still have the same labor codes. We have some, in my mind, we have a little bit of struggle. Again, still kind of marrying up, okay, this package name applies to this phase code inside of our budget. But I think we're pretty close. That's more of a data strategy discussion, I think, at that end. Are you able to fully utilize your automated tooling when fabbing sketches that did not go through BIM? I will say no to that as far as fully, because for me, fully does come from that model. We can take hand entered cut links and you know, create our own recipes inside. I think they're called recipes inside of our 6-axis cutter and still utilize the tool. But for me to be able to clarify or to count that as a full use of that tool, I would say it has to come from BIM, be pushed digitally through the model. So we don't even have to do any sort of manual inputs on the machine. All right, lots of questions. Thank you. It seems that firms must change the process flows to switch from stick-built and prefab, including the planning and driving a project from the front months before it was years in the past. How do you get internal operations teams to realize and let go of the old ways and get out in front with BIM teams? This can be painfully slow at its best. I agree with you. It's going to be painfully slow at its best. I think for us, it's just been, we've had the benefit of, like, we've been doing this for 25 plus years. I've only been here almost 7 years, but I can go back through the archives. We've been prefabbing for a very long time. And as far as, you know, and we've been BIMing just as long. We started, you know, through the AutoCAD, the whole AutoCAD progression up through Revit now. It is part of our culture now. Again, as we get people in from other companies or whatever, what have you, it can be a slow process to get them up on board with it. But I think that it does generally go well. And once it becomes part of your culture like that, or what we've seen a lot too is kind of co-mingling teams, or a little like reverse mentoring, or making sure that we share through our operations meetings, so that, you know, anybody new that maybe did come from a different company that didn't have a strong BIM process or fabrication process, that they see others, they see their peers within the company, they see project executives that have you know, kind of grown through the company. They see them talking about the benefits, and then we share those wins, and that does get them excited to kind of want to jump in and get on board as well. Specifically for sheet metal, how do you track prefab accurately through the fab shop? We track linear feet installed in the field via Autodesk Assemble or Bluebeam. It's been challenging to track efficiency gain from prefabbing ducts and caps and fittings in the fab shop. Oh, let's see. How do you track prefab accurately? I don't know how much more I can elaborate other than kind of talking about our work ticketing program. We, along with that, and then kind of marrying that back up to some processes that we've been doing through some with the model and some other dashboarding and stuff, we have started to kind of get a productivity number. I'm not sure we're real far along with, you know, being able to prove, I would say we've been able to prove productivity increase based on, and again, with the duct side is still kind of tracking that kind of pounds per hour. Those pounds per hour numbers have gotten better. Then through the field, we are doing some field install tracking there, and I would say that those numbers have also improved. Some of that stuff too, I always think, or I wonder if, all things even, are we constantly, are we worried only about productivity and cost, or what are the other benefits that we get out of prefab? Cleaner job site, more certainty, safety, less risk. Sometimes I think that those are the numbers that are going to be harder to show as a KPI. Maybe all things told, the productivity is the same as if you would have stick built it, but you have all these other added values that are maybe not being tracked or are hard to track. Do we track prefab labor hours versus field labor hours, and what is the average percentage? Peter, I will say that we do. I don't have a insight onto the average percentage for that right now. I do know, like in some of our phasing, we do have phases for prefab and field. I would probably give the answer everybody hates on it depends. It depends on the job type, and whatnot. Patrick Yoakum then said, the reason I asked, my BIM department has spent countless hours going through the PM's folders searching for approved submittals. I've been thinking about opening a job position of one person who handles submittals, who is the direct link between the PM and BIM to expedite this process. One of the things I will say that has helped us a lot recently, Patrick, is try not to name drop too many different softwares, but I will say that we have instituted a new project management system. So we've gotten away from the emails and the spreadsheets and the network drives. We're Vista by Viewpoint customers, so we're using their team product. I'm not going to say it's eliminated any of the hassle, but they all know where their submittals are now. They have a way to kind of communicate the workflow and the push from VDC. And then each project team does have a lead, and then that lead, we also have a discipline lead, so that we have some tiers there where we can kind of work to make sure that the project management team understands the importance of these submittals and the timeliness of all of them. So they do work pretty hard at trying to open that communication up more. I think that we have had in the past, we've had like a project admin that sat inside of VDC. I think we struggled with that though, just because VDC is involved with so many different projects, and typically a PA's on multiple projects themselves, but they're kind of restricted to a handful of PMs or whatever. When we had one PA for the entire department, admittedly we have a decent sized VDC department, so it made it difficult for them to kind of keep track of that themselves. Excuse me. Do you have prefab departments and teams that are dedicated to finding and executing prefab on a project, or do you leave what is prefab up to field decisions? How do you justify RFI and prefab department and deduct the costs from traditional project labor and costs? We do not have a prefab team. I would love to have a prefab team. I would love to have a prefab czar or something like that, where they can make those decisions ahead of time. But in our current configuration as a company, that is it is a discussion between the PM and the field team to decide what they feel is beneficial to prefab. And I do think, honestly, I do think that's gone well. Again, you're going to have stronger prefab teams than others, or stronger prefab projects than others. I have heard of other companies that will have a prefab team or one or two people in a position where they sit down and they decide what will and will not be prefabbed, again, to varying degrees. As far as justifying it, I think that kind of goes to the earlier discussion, like um, some of those ROIs are hard to prove, and they're more of like a feel good ROI. Again, maybe worst, maybe I would say worst case prefab, you're kind of net, you're even, you're net neutral. But what are those other benefits that you get from doing prefabrication? And how is that, how do you put an ROI number to that to offset apartment like that? So we're coming up with 15 minutes left. I'm going to answer one last question here, and then I'll give you all 15 minutes of your day back. Going from no prefab to interjecting prefab into the situation where the field foreman hand draw the job currently. What are some good ideas to get the field on board when they do not necessarily want to be on board, but upper management is pushing prefab? What are some benefits to prefab when we're being compared to how fast they can draw lines on ISO paper and submit to the job, bypassing designer altogether? All right, Matt Andrews. Let me see if I can answer this best. I think that what is the best way to do that? I think that if they understand that they're going to get a better product, I know that if they're being pushed to prefab, they're probably already grumbling about it, but if you can get them to understand that what the product that they're going to get by getting it through detail is going to be better. It's going to fit the first time. They're not going to have to cut pieces apart. They're going to get exactly what they asked for. Maybe that is hard to justify them being able to sketch a line on a piece of ISO paper faster, but I think that should be a good place to start. If they want a better product, they need to give you better inputs. So with that, I think I've answered my last question. So go on to my final thank you slide here. So thanks for the team at Evolve. I was great to do this at MEP for us, and I was happy to reprise it here again. And look forward to discussing the rest, more of this with the rest of you another time. So thank you very much.
And we thank you, Travis. Yep, getting to see this the first time around at MEP Force was awesome. And we thank you for coming to give us the update. And thank you
Appreciate
to our registrants, everyone who attended today. We'll be following up with an email with a link to the recording. Make sure that you're following Travis and the Construction Dorks podcast. It is truly a favorite of mine for industry news and discussions. They're great. Go check them out on Spotify or anywhere you can get your podcasts. And make sure you're following Evolve on LinkedIn and our other social medias to stay up to date with upcoming webinars and more information on solutions that can help you improve shop management. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.